Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the special live stream session with the release of the Consumer Price Index or the latest inflation data for the month of August 2024, which is set to be released in about 15 minutes at 5:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time or 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The general consensus for today's CPI is about 2.5% and 3.2% for the core CPI, which is going to be a significant decrease from 2.9% in the month prior on an annual percentage basis. And I do have my favorite channel, Bloomberg Live, ready to go as soon as the CPI report comes about in about 15 minutes. And the Federal Reserve has not raised interest rates since July 26, 2023, which maintained the Fed funds rates between 5.25 to 5.5%. And we are now expecting the Fed to cut interest rates a week from today on September 18th. And the question is if they're going to cut it by 25 basis points or 50 basis points. Now, and this is the final inflation report the Fed needs to see before deciding on the interest rates on September 18th. And I posted this in my private group, which you can join me out on at FIREPsyChat.com/community. And we had unemployment come out last Friday, and it was not good at all. And I'm going to get into that later on. And I'm expecting the stock market to be even more volatile this week and next week because of the following events happening soon. And we already had the presidential debate last night. And let me know how you think the debate went last night. After today's inflation report, we're going to get the PPI report coming out tomorrow at the same time, which is the producer price index. And that's the opposite side of the consumer price index. And next week, on September 17th, we're going to get the retail sales report, which is just the day before the Federal Reserve making its decision on the interest rates. In the following week, we'll get the GDP Q2 third estimate or the final estimate. And I'm interested to see if they're going to make any revisions from the second estimate at 3%. And we're not going to get the advanced estimate for the Q3 GDP until October 30th. So we're still gonna have a little time for that one. But I'm very curious to see if we're gonna see any contraction for Q3. And for our country's sake, I really hope that we don't have a recession in Q3 and Q4 because we just can't afford a recession right now with over $35 trillion in national debt. And PCE inflation from August 31st already showed that it's met below the Fed's target of 2%. And PCE stands for personal consumption and expenditures, and it rose by 0.2% from the month prior, so which was in line with expectations. So this metrics, there we go. So this metric is showing that the Fed's preferred inflation gauge is trending below 2% based on the past 3 months of data on an annualized basis. We haven't seen anything below 2% since the inflation crisis began in late 2021. So this is something positive for the Federal Reserve to start cutting rates next week. And the Fed will definitely pay attention to this chart as they start cutting rates in September, November, and December. And if you're brand new to learning about the economy, PCE is different from CPI in several different ways. The PCE has a broader scope than the CPI, like it includes employer contributions to health insurance, while CPI focuses only on consumers' out-of-pocket medical expenses. The CPI stands for Consumer Price Index, and that's what they're going to show in about 10 minutes on Bloomberg about the CPI results. And the next PCE inflation does not come out until September 27th for the August report. And you can always visit the Bureau of Labor Statistics to have a better understanding of the differences between the CPI index and the PCE index. All right. And the unemployment data came in with a lot fewer jobs than expected, with 142,000 jobs added in August, but the unemployment rate declined to 4.2%. I call that sus, like younger people would say, because normally when you see a smaller increase like that, the unemployment rate should have remained at 4.3%, right? Well, the decrease to 4.2% was due to a reversal of the temporary layoffs which went down from 190,000 from the July jobs report. And I completely understand why people just don't trust the government data anymore, because they already made a mistake with the overstatement of 818,000 jobs created, when in fact they were not. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but when I read something like this, which was the largest error in jobs reporting like since 2009, it makes everyone think twice about what the government is actually reporting. And the 4.2% unemployment rate from August continues to trigger the SOM rule. And I talk about the SOM rule exclusively or extensively in my private group and the email to my private members. But if you don't know what the SOM rule is, it was named after an economist named Claudia Somm. And if you go to the St. Louis Fed's website to keep track of the SOM rule, because it's been accurately predicting a recession every single time. So when the unemployment rate in July ticked upwards to 4.3%, over the past 3 months, and the average unemployment rate was 4.13%, which was higher than the lowest 3-month average from the past year at 3.63%. And those numbers trigger the SOM rule, because reaching the 0.5% level means there's an incoming recession. So the 4.2% from August is still signaling the start of a recession when the 3-month average unemployment rate at 0.5% or more above the 3-month average within the past year. If I lost you, let me know in the comment section down below. Or you can get my free financial resources from my website at FIREPsyChat.com/resources. But anyway, this could be a false warning. It could be. Absolutely. But the stock market still did not react well to the latest labor report. And the opinion between whether we're going to be in a recession or not is pretty split down the middle. And we probably have half of the economists saying that we're going to be in the labor sector recession, but the other half say that this signal may not mean much when we don't see a steep increase in workers with permanent job losses. And we saw that in 2008 and 2009, which triggered a long-term recession, right? And the SOM rule has been accurate about predicting a recession every single time. And I'm going to say this every live stream, because some people in my comment section and even some economists want to see a recession. And I don't. A recession is far worse than high inflation, and it will take much longer to recover from it. The government would end up issuing more stimulus checks, which would put us further into debt, right? Now, there's a 100% chance that they are going to cut rates. But the question is if they're going to cut it by 25 basis points or 50 basis points. And I think 25 basis points will make sense for right now. But if the Fed cuts it by 50 basis points, then the stock market may not react well to that news, because they might, then they might know something that we don't. And we pretty much have all of the data we needed to see until September 18th, with the exception of the PPI report tomorrow morning and the retail sales report on September 17th. But those are not going to make a significant impact on the Fed's decision to cut rates by 25 or 50 basis points, in my honest opinion. And the Fed is pretty close to making that decision after today's CPI report. And this one is going to be even more interesting, because the Fed is they're going to have a meeting in November, which happens to be 2 days after election day. And investors are betting on the Fed to cut additional 50 basis points after the 25 basis point cut in September. And I would expect the mortgage rates to significantly decrease by the second week of November, because the 10-year Treasury notes will likely be lower before the rate cuts even happen. And this is going to depend entirely on the PCE inflation, CPI report, and labor report between September 18th and November 7th. And on December 18th, they're predicting at least another 25 basis point rate cut. But there's also a chance of cutting another 50 basis points. And once the Fed starts cutting rates, they're going to continue to cut every time they meet until the Fed funds rates reaches around 3.5% next year. And that's just my prediction. And they could cut even further if they see more weaknesses in the labor market. And I would expect the high yield savings accounts and CDs to come down to like 2% or 3%, or maybe even lower by then. So that, keep that in mind if you have a lot of cash set aside. And the summary of economic projections, or the SCP, will also come out 2 more times in 2024 on September 18th next week. and December 18th. And we want to pay attention to what the Fed's projecting with the economic growth, unemployment rate, inflation, and interest rates. And if you want to know how many rate cuts they're going to do in 2025, we want to look at the December SEP, and I'll be going live for that one. So be sure to subscribe if you haven't done that already. Now, I know I talk a lot about finances on this channel, but I also want to take a moment today to remember the victims of 9/11 from 23 years ago. And I was in high school when it happened, and it was the reason why I enlisted in the Air Force in 2004, and I got sworn in actually at Candlestick Point, which was the old San Francisco 49ers Stadium. That was a really cool moment. But anyway, I remember how chaotic and saddening it was to watch helplessly with the North Tower on fire because the TV was showing people waving for help, and it was just devastating to watch it live on TV. And nobody really knew what happened to the North Tower until we saw Flight 175 crash into the South Tower at 9:03 a.m. and Flight 77 crashing to the Pentagon about 30 minutes later. Then we heard that there were as many as 8 airplanes that got hijacked. And there was a lot of mixed information and news that confused everyone at the time. And I strongly encourage you to visit the 9/11 Memorial at the World Trade Center in the Pentagon, especially for the younger generation who was maybe born after 9/11 or maybe too young to remember 9/11. I really love history, and that's probably my second favorite subject behind finances. It's a pretty close tie with the finances. I would totally be a history teacher if I were given the opportunity. And I teach my 12-year-old every year about what happened on 9/11 and how that changed our country. And my channel is all about the FIRE movement, but I do occasionally create videos about TSP to help my fellow military brothers and sisters invest in retirement, because only we know how much they don't teach us about finances and retirement. And love talking to clients who are from first responders, firefighters, and I'll always treat them with respect. And as a veteran, it's tough. And there was the 20-year war in Afghanistan. I spent some time in Iraq in 2006, and I went to Afghanistan in 2008, went to Kuwait in 2010. And, it's just a lot of memories, and those are the friends that I will never forget. So, take the time today to just remember the victims. And truly, honestly, I don't think I would be where I am today if I really didn't join the military. But anyway, in about 16 minutes, at 8:46 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, American Airlines Flight 11 crashed into the North Tower, which was followed by Flight 175 crashing into the South Tower at 9:03 a.m. So just please take this time to talk to your kids or grandkids about what happened today, so that we will never forget what those victims went through. So yeah, thanks for listening to my little talk here. But let me go ahead and pull up Bloomberg here. We got 1 minute to go until the latest inflation comes out. Let's take a look here. I shall unmute.
The heartbeat of the tech
spread across global markets.
The real-time data aspect is going to be important.
We're going to bring you expert analysis on that. Sure.
Don't miss Bloomberg's interview with the
Welcome to the world of decentralized finance.
And this is also being live streamed to my private group. And if you are interested in joining my private group, go to FIREPsyChat.com/community. And if you don't care for that, you can always get my free resources like 401k calculator and financial independence calculator by visiting FIREPsyChat.com/resources. So if you're more into the free stuff, go for it. And if you do want to schedule a consultation to talk about your finances, your financial situation, go to FIREPsyChat.com/consultation. Here we go.
60 minutes away from the opening bell and just seconds away from inflation data in America. The last CPI print going into the Fed's decision a week from today. The scores look like this. We're down
2.5%.
1%
It's a
on the
meat.
S&P. On the Nasdaq 100, we're
Oh,
also
core
down a
CPI
tenth of
increased to
1%.
4.
Similar
Oh,
move
wait,
on the
no, it's
Russell.
not.
The
Okay,
small
core
cap, no
CPI
drama.
is
Switch to the board
3.2%.
and get to the bond market. The
and
scores at the front end of
2.5%
the
for the
curve.
headline
Yield still falling,
CPI.
down a basis point or two.
And
The 2-year, 357.73.
okay,
With economic data,
so
it's
shelter
Mike McKee.
rose
Good morning, Mike.
0.5%.
Good morning. We
let's
have a
take a
little bit
listen.
of an inflation issue here. On the core side, we're up 0.3% during the month, just 0.2 as forecast for the headline. On a year-over-year basis, that pushes core to 3.2%, which was what was forecast. So the base effects come into play on an annual basis, and it doesn't really matter that we had a little bit faster inflation there. On a headline basis, CPI 2.5%. That's a big drop from 2.9%. But again, that's somewhat base effects. We'll take a look at what the 3-month, 6-month moving averages are, and we'll take a look at what the components of all this are, John.
I'll walk you through the first move in the market, and I'll stress what I always say after a big data point. First move, not always the right move, but this is the move. Yields higher at the front end by 3 basis points. And a suggestion, I'm sure, from many who are looking at this move, that this is the difference between going 25 and 50 at the Federal Reserve. The 2-year up 4 basis points, the 10-year up 2 basis points, the dollar a little bit stronger, dollar yen unwinding, almost unchanged now on the session on dollar yen at 142.30, and equities pulling back, Lisa, on the S&P 500 by 0.6%.
I don't usually say this. Usually bonds are the best indicator, always the most interesting asset class, 100% the ones you should watch. But I will say that this reaction in the equity market is more interesting because the idea of a 50 basis point rate cut being taken off the table somehow is negative for equities that maybe we're baking that in a little bit more. That's the only assumption I could possibly imagine at a time when some people were saying that actually disinflation would be a bigger risk to stocks than a little bit of inflation.
There would be the belief, not necessarily mine, that this could constrain the Fed put and constrain their ability to respond to downside risks or get ahead of potential downside risk materializing. That's the way this will be seen this morning. So yields up at the front end by 5 or 6 basis points, equities down, particularly on small caps, the Russell down by 1%. That makes sense if that is what you believe. We'll see what we get a week from today.
Yeah, but it doesn't make sense if you believe that actually this is a gauge of the fact that demand isn't falling off a cliff and that the economy isn't struggling and that people are still spending and you see real wages tick up. So you can kind of pick your narrative. Right now, the narrative is that the Fed put might not be as strong as it was. And I believe that what you're saying right now is very much was being priced in. This is a confusing moment, and it just highlights how the reaction function of markets is not very clear. It's the reaction function of the Fed, which is maybe a little bit more clear, although unclear on the magnitude.
Bonds still falling, yield still rising, up by 5 or 6 basis points. The 2-year 365, the 10-year, just bear in mind, before today, every single day in September, the 10-year yield has dropped. It's up by just 2 basis points right now to 366. We've had a big rally in fixed income. Mike McKee, you've had a couple of minutes to go over the numbers. What's screaming, jumping off the page to you?
Well, the inflation we're seeing in this report is basically where we have seen it all along. Now, used cars and new cars prices were not really changed very much. New cars flat and used cars down 1%. But owner's equivalent rent up 0.5%. That's an increase from the prior month. And it is so large as a component of CPI that is what the BLS has really pushed up the core here. The motor vehicle insurance number up 0.6%, still rising a little bit less than it had been. Airfares up 3.9%. On the other side, we have energy commodities like gasoline down 0.6%. You probably knew that at the pump. And food, which of course has been a big argument in the political world. Food at home flat, grocery prices flat after a 1/10 gain last month. So really, grocery store prices aren't rising, at least according to the BLS. I'm sure you get people at the checkout counter saying, oh, it's still so much more.
Yeah, especially the computers that are checking you out. I am wondering, though, about the housing component. That, to me, is really significant, given the fact that there are people who challenge whether this is a lagging indicator, whether this is an accurate reflection, and how much really what some people would say is a broken housing market has contributed to the stickiness of inflation. How much is that essentially what you're seeing in the data?
Well, the housing, if you took housing out, and I can't do the math in my head, but if you took housing out of this, you would probably have a very close to flat CPI for the month. And I think that's what the Fed is going to do, because they know they're not affecting that at this point. It's supposed to be coming down. And then if you look at the rest of the world doesn't do housing like the US does housing in CPI. And so you can make a case that underlying inflation, which is what officials at the Fed are making that case, underlying inflation is still coming down.
Given what's going on, though, with core, how difficult would it be for Powell to really gain consensus for something like a 50 basis point cut?
I think it'd be harder for him to do that. A part of it is image, the optics of what you're doing. And if you have to explain it and try to convince the American people, they don't focus enough on this stuff to really buy it and to listen. So the easy story to tell is the 25 basis points we're seeing inflation come down. The job market is still good. The economy is still good. We can start the cutting cycle now. But it doesn't look like there's an emergency in the economy, and it doesn't look like inflation is going to go shooting up again.
Mike McKee, thank you, sir. Very, very marginal.
I agree with Michael. This is why I like Bloomberg. For the most part, they are very unbiased with what they say. So I do want to give you guys a little bit of a breakdown here from what the CPI was saying. The report itself. And he's right. If you took out the housing altogether, it actually does not, it's pretty flat. Pretty flat all across. So, oops, that's not right. Okay, there we go. So I am gonna just take a peek here. So I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in. If you've never seen this before, you can go to Bureau of Labor Statistics and take a look from there. What I am not gonna do, I'm not gonna zoom in on the chart. You can do that on your device. You can do that on your YouTube app or wherever that you're watching from. You can zoom in on it and then take a look at the numbers. What I don't want to do is just zoom in and then make you guys all dizzy going around. So that's what I'm going to do. But if you look at home, flat, not home, sorry, food, flat. Energy was a slight increase, but not too much. But what's increasing is the food away from home. So people eating out, you know, I hate eating out because like they're still expensive and I still like prefer to eat at home. Energy commodities down 0.8% and gasoline still down, as you can probably tell about the gas prices. So food has been the main topic for all the presidential. Well, they didn't really talk about it too much at the debate last night, but that has been like what people have been disliking for the last 3-4 years, right? So that's something that everyone's paying attention to. How much do the eggs cost? How much does beef cost? That type of thing. So I'm gonna skip energy because they're just coming down as normal. New vehicles flat. Used vehicle came down by -1%. That has been coming down -10.4% on an annualized basis. So on the right side here, this is all annualized basis, and this right here is what you want to pay attention to. This is from August, month-over-month increase or decrease. Okay. And medical care commodities looks like it's down -0.2%. And then when we look at shelter, that's what he was talking about. It's 0.5%. It is the biggest weight in the CPI. Wow, transportation services went up by 0.9%. That's interesting. That might have been the biggest increase since let's see, April. Okay, so that is a pretty significant increase there for 7.9%. And medical care services at -0.1%. Okay, so let's take a look and see what's down here. All right, so the food index has increased 0.1% in August after rising 0.2% in each of the previous 2 months. Got it. So it is pretty much flat. Non-alcoholic beverages index fell 0.7% in August after rising 0.5%. So let's see. Food at home, index for other food at home decreased 0.3%. The index for fruits and vegetables declined 0.2%, and the index for cereals and bakery product fell 0.1% in August. So flat, pretty flat, right? Nothing really significant happened for the August CPI. This is probably the other one. The food away from home index rose 0.3% in August. So food away from home, restaurants, dining out, takeouts, all that stuff, that's still increasing. Talking to my clients who are still in debt, I always tell them, stop eating out. That's probably going to be the biggest expense item on your budget until you get out of debt. And I don't have any debt, and I still limit myself from going out to eat because how expensive it is. Let's see. So that's for food. The food away from home index rose 4% over the last year, so it's still increasing. And that's like I said, that's still something that we do. People do look at and discuss. Energy, we all know it's come down. Okay, so there was something I do want to see. Car insurance has always been the topic here. Auto insurance. Oh, you know what? I'm not going to search for it because this is not going to be good. I know auto, it's right here. Is it vehicle? It's not auto, is it? Vehicle, motor vehicle insurance. Man, it's been a while. Let's see. See if I can find insurance. Tenants and household insurance still going up. So health insurance about flat, but year over year is still there. Oh, there we go. Motor vehicle insurance is still increased by 16.5% year over year. And I do want to look at what the month over month increase is like. Let's take a look here. You have to kind of like search down. Nope. Okay, percentage change, large. Okay, so motor vehicle insurance went up by 0.6% here. That's between July and August. So if you take a look here, I'm going to go and highlight so you'll know what to do. And this is what you want to look at, July to August changes. And if you look at it at the bottom, because this is more of a broken down data, when you go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics website, click on the PDF one, not the HTML, so you can get the full breakdown, and just open it up in Adobe if you really want to nerd it out like I am doing right now. But motor vehicle maintenance and servicing decreased by negative 0.1%, but the motor vehicle repair keeps going up by 1.4%. And just remember that vehicle repair and body work and anything maintenance related ties directly to vehicle insurance. So, more car accidents happen, we're going to get more, there's going to be an increase in car insurance too. So it's frustrating, but so we seem to have more car accidents since COVID than we did years prior. People just need to drive more carefully probably. But I also believe that they're gouging prices at the same time. And I did a video on that in the last live stream. I believe they're, bringing up way too much prices, and then because they're still public companies. Car insurance companies are public companies, and they need to have profitable quarters to please their shareholders. So yeah, vehicle insurance went up by 0.6%. So understandably, it is frustrating for people. But here's something that's interesting: airline fares went up by 3.9% in just 1 month. Wow, that is a significant increase right there. In just 1 month, 3.9%. And I don't know, I just flew back from the East Coast. I was in DC, Virginia, and there were airports were pretty packed. I mean, I guess that's just my perception, and it's just one airport, but people are still traveling. And I think a lot of people took advantage of the low airline fares and just kind of went from there. And they just wanted to maybe fly away for the Labor Day weekend. And I'm sure next month in October for the September CPI, we're going to see an increase in airline fares because of the demand. I think we'll have a lot of flyers during the Labor Day weekend. The next time people are going to fly a lot will be Thanksgiving. And then after that will be Christmas timeframe. So it'll be pretty interesting to see how this transforms, because that is one of the items that I do pay attention to because I love traveling. Let's see, hospital services. Let me see. I don't see any significant increase in anything. Airline was something. That's 3.9%. Oh, what's 2.5%? Okay, so public transportation, 2.5%. Wow. I feel like that's something they shouldn't increase, but they do. Education and community services, personal care services, Tax return preparation and other accounting fees went down by negative 1.3%. Financial services went down negative 0.3%. That's pretty true. I mean, my service fees, it's been pretty flat, but the prices do go up every year for me. For labor-wise, it does go up, but having my goal is to have long-term clients, making sure that they're still on track to become to achieve FIRE. But I understand that there's a slowdown. If anything, would be financial services, business services related. Well, cell phone services went down slightly. Personal care services went up. Haircuts went up. Yeah. Haircuts are still expensive. Daycare and preschool, that's probably one of the most frustrating items on every parent. Luckily, my daughter is 12 now, so I don't have to put her in daycare. But it is oh man, it's crazy to see how people have to pay $15, $18, $2,000 for one child for daycare. I mean, I know it depends on the location, but when my daughter was like 1, I put her in daycare, and that cost me like $600 a month. People would do anything to go back to that price. So it's crazy. And can you really blame people for not wanting to have more kids? But yeah. Who girl? Good morning from Georgia. Cool. Good morning from Vegas. What's crazy is someone recognized me on the plane last week, and I was like, oh man, I made it. Because somebody recognized me on the plane, just asked me, hey, are you Sai? Do you do finance stuff on YouTube? And I'm like, yeah, cool. It's like celebrity moment. This is one of those, what celebrities do on the plane. So yeah, that's just one of those things. But like I said, this is a pretty flat consumer report, inflation report. So it came in 2.5% if you missed it, 2.5% headline, and then 3.2% core CPI. But if you take out shelter, it hasn't really done anything from July to August. So right now, the Federal Reserve is looking to cut interest rates by 0.25%. So there's a 71% chance. I'm going to go and refresh that just real quick and see how that has changed. But what you do want to pay attention to, there you go, 85% chance that the Fed is going to cut rates by 25 basis points next Wednesday. And I will be going live stream for that. So be sure to subscribe if you haven't done it already. What you want to pay attention to right now as the rates start to come down, the 10-year treasury, the bond market and the stock market right now, they're a little confused about the report. They don't know how they want to proceed with this. But as they start cutting rates, September, November, December, if you have sizable cash, and this is not any personalized financial advice, but if you do have cash in, let's say, high yield savings account or CDs, just be aware of how the rates are going to come down at the same time. A lot of people, they start investing or start saving their money in 2020, 2021. I would say 2021, start following, YouTube channels or following people to start opening up high yield savings accounts. So when they came in, they were already at 3.8%, 4%, and then now 5% APY for the high yield savings account, right? But as they start cutting rates, we're going to start seeing 4.3. And I think Ally Bank, which is one of my favorite banks, not sponsored, it's down, I believe it's at 4.3%. So after today or next week, I believe they're going to start cutting more down to like 4.1 or maybe down to 4% or lower. In November, if they do cut rates by 50 basis points, like this one is saying, then expect the high yield savings accounts and even CDs, they're going to come down to like probably 3.5 or maybe lower to like 3.3% in high yield savings accounts. So, don't panic. I don't know. I opened up my first high yield savings account in 2015, and interest rate at the time that was 0.9% APY. So it was 0.9% was still better than 0.01% with the traditional banks. So, I still made more money than the traditional banks, but, cash is going to become less and less, pleasant or appealing for consumers. So that I wouldn't be surprised if, this kind of becomes like more of a risk on market and people would probably put more into the stock market. But what's really hanging up the investors right now is the jobs report, the labor report, and they're not sure if people should invest because they're fearing that recession possibly coming in Q3, Q4, or maybe Q1, Q2 2025. So those are the things that the several catalysts that's coming, right? And we have people don't talk about this. No presidential candidates that talked about this last night was, the debt ceiling is going to expire in January 2025. And the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, I don't know why that wasn't brought up at all at the debate last night. That's a huge thing. That's going to expire next year. And, I know I posted a video about Biden's plan about raising taxes that came out maybe 2 months ago, 3 months ago. I try to make it as unbiased as possible, but it turned out that video, some people saw it as, if you hate Biden, then you must be a Trump fan. Like, dude, I'm very right down the middle kind of guy, and I don't take sides, and I do look at presidential candidates. I always vote every election. And I do want to listen to what each presidential candidate has to say. And I watched the debate last night. Just because you agree with one policy and disagree with another, it doesn't make you automatically a political affiliate. I think people need to stop saying that, or people need to stop assuming that just because, one person, let's say you are against, unrealized capital gains. I'm absolutely against taxing unrealized capital gains. And then people in the comment section said, well, that's just for people with, for billionaires and multimillionaires. What does that have to do with you? It has everything to do with us. You do realize that the stock market is moved by billionaires and multimillionaires, right? So it does affect your 401k accounts. It does, people would lose. They don't want to invest as much in the US market because of that, right? So those are the things. And, if you say, oh, I agree with the green energy policy, and then you're automatically labeled as, a liberal, crazy leftist, that type of thing. And I think people just need to stop labeling each other and maybe look at all the policies objectively and make the judgment for yourself. And when you go, before I vote, I want to know what each presidential candidate has to say about the economic policies. I do look at their website, go to their website and type in their economic policies, their tax policies. When I go to Trump's website, it's all there. I know what he's done. That's the easy thing. 4 years ago or 8 years ago, what he was going to do, and he did it. But when I go to Harris's website, it's really nothing there. There's not much detail on her website on what she's going to do. And neither candidates really talked about anything last night. I'm going to try to be as politically neutral here, because I'm not taking sides on anybody. But, the debate, the last two debates, I don't know, maybe the last 10 debates, they never say anything specific. I get it, I get it. But we want to hear more about what they are going to do instead of what they didn't do, right? So those are the things that maybe people they need to kind of think about and say, well, rate cuts will be a bad idea, maybe a good idea, something they could debate about. Or the people can't afford homes, so we're going to give them money. No, how about we build more homes? Because it's the inventory issue. The rate cuts can be adjusted. That's monetary policy by the Federal Reserve, but you can absolutely build more homes going into the future. So that's something that I really hope that, I don't know. I'm not going to say who I'm voting for because I still don't know. I don't know. And I'm one of those undecided voters that the media portrays, that there are so many undecided voters. And somebody has told me in the past, that I am the problem, centrist like me, people who, you know, vote Democrat or Republican or someone else, I am the problem. I'm like, I don't have to choose. Why do I have to choose one political party, right? But anyway, I'm going to stop ranting. But do want to take a moment here. Second. Oh, there's and you know, just maybe take a moment today. And I talked about it in my in the live stream earlier. But today is 9/11.
Charles, Aaron.
Joshua, Todd, Aaron.
Let's take a moment to remember the victims of 9/11. And I'm sure we have a lot of veterans, first responders, and firefighters watching this. So, you know, take a moment to talk to your kids, grandkids, and talk about what happened that day. You know, what you do, what was your reaction? How do you feel about all the changes that happened from 2001 to now? It's educational. Show them the videos of the news coverage that happened on that day. You know, those are the things that that we need to take a moment to come together to remember. You know, we're so divided right now with all the things that's happening. But anyway, gotta go. Appreciate you guys joining in. I will be going live stream next Wednesday, and I'll be answering all kinds of questions at the same time when the Federal Reserve make their decisions on the interest rate cuts. And we will see you then. I appreciate it. Cheryl, good morning and good day.